When you sit down to write a story, sometimes the words pour out of you perfectly formed into something that's engaging, amazing, well-structured, cohesive. It all makes sense. That happens like 1% of the time for me. 99% of the time, one of two problems happens. I sit down and I write a headline and I'm like, okay, where's this going to go? And then the thought of turning that into a fully fledged idea that makes sense to other people, I can't do it. So I'm like, all right, I'll come back to that later. I never come back to it. The second is when I have an idea, I sit down, I'm super excited, I pour my whole heart and soul into this article, and I sit back and I'm like, whoa, that felt so good to write. And I look at it and it's just like 2,000 words of stream of consciousness, not a real article, just a journal entry. When I have these issues, I turn to my tried, trusted, true, every best T adjective there is out there outline. I sit down, I structure my article before I start writing it, and that gives me the strength, the integrity, and honestly, the sort of backbone to carry on writing the story, turning it into something that other people will want to read, which is the aim of all writing. So on Medium, I do all my writing inside the Medium editor. I find it pretty easy to use. I like to go ahead and format it the way I want it to be formatted, even just in the outline format. It gives me an idea of how the article is going to look. But I want to share my outline process with you today so that you don't have those problems anymore. There's no shame in, struggling to write. We've all been there. But with this tool, you'll hopefully be able to get over that hurdle and give yourself a structure that will help you build around it and turn your structure into a beautiful, fully formed, graceful, elegant article that you can share with other people and be proud of. Okay, so let's share my screen real quick. I want to walk you through exactly what I do, and I'm actually going to do it inside the Medium editor so you can see how I do this exactly. All right, so when you first start writing in Medium, it prompts you to start with a title. Big empty page, big empty thing saying, put your title in here. I'm about to liberate you. Your first title is garbage. My first title is garbage too. This isn't a you thing. This isn't us, a writer's thing, okay? Titles are really hard to come up with. There's a reason that a lot of the best writers I know, Tom Kugler, Tim Denning, Sinem, they all say, look, your titles aren't good. That's okay. You need to spend time working on them after you've written the article. The reason that I ask people to do that is that once you've written the article, you'll have a much better sense of what you're trying to say, what your argument is, and how you're going to formulate it. All of that is going to make it much, much, much easier to write this article or to write this title. Okay, so here we go. You can write a bad title. So I'm just going to write a bad title, just my main idea. And then I might format it. So Medium likes you to do like that, get rid of trailing punctuation. Do not even bother with the subtitle right now. Just launch straight into your story. So every story on Medium and everywhere on the internet, you need an introduction. If a reader has gone so far as to click on your article because they love the title, the introduction is going to be what makes them decide whether they're going to stick around or they're going to go read somebody else's awesome article. You're always competing against other people, unfortunately, and not just other writers, but Netflix, YouTube, Twitter, someone's dog. You have a limited amount of time to grab someone. The introduction is it. So when I outline my introduction outline, sorry, I can't think, type, and talk at the same time. Introduction outline, I try to do a couple of things. So I try to do the problem. The first line of this introduction is going to be the problem. This is going to be like, hey, Twitter sucks for most people. And that's going to be your hook. That's going to be like, wow, people are going to click on that and think, wow, yeah, actually, Twitter does suck for most people. All right, great. What's next? So after that, you do symptoms. What this means is you're going to talk about why this problem is so bad, why it's pervasive, why you think it sticks around, what's going on with this problem, how come Twitter does suck so bad. Great. And then the solution. A lot of people don't like to put their solution in their introduction. A lot of people think, no. Save that for the conclusion. Force them to scroll all the way down. Not so, my friend, not so. If by putting your solution in your introduction, you are telling your reader, look, here's the answer. It's a good answer. You are gonna want to sit down and read this whole thing so you can see how good an answer it is. If you're not gonna give it away in the first couple paragraphs, there's always a chance that somebody's gonna be like, oh wow, okay, I don't want to have to scroll that far. Boom, gone. by putting it in the introduction. You don't have to give a lot of context. You just have to say, look, this is the solution. Give them a solution. Trust them to see that it's a fantastic solution and want to stick around to the bottom. Okay, without further ado, that's our introduction. That's it. And you look at this and you're like, okay, actually, I could write that introduction. I'm sure as you're listening to this, you're like, oh, what? I can think of 1,000 problems right now. I can think about why hats always make my head so itchy. I can talk about how difficult it is to find quality cat food online. You're thinking of problems, you're thinking of symptoms, you're thinking of solutions. This is a really great way to start structuring your article. Okay, so we've got our introduction. You know what comes next? Bullet point number 1. So we're going to call this main idea 1. And I'm going to go ahead and formulate it like that. Again, don't worry about titling this. We can get to this in a second. But right now you just want to start to think about how you're going to formulate your main idea. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Your structure of your body can basically mirror the introduction. That's my secret. You don't have to get artsy and creative with the structure. This is a very, very typical outline. I mean, you can get fancier with different outlines later on, but if this is what you're struggling with, you can literally just copy paste that exact same thing. Look, we're going to do it right now. We're going to copy, we're going to paste, and we're going to make these all bold. Okay, so main idea 1 is the problem. So now you can start to develop a little bit of context around the problem. The introduction, these are all one-liners everywhere. All you're doing is just trying to hook people in with the introduction. With your main idea, you're going to start elaborating. Okay, well, how did you notice this problem? Why does this problem persist? Maybe you could even get into, why do you think people resisted this? Experts who might agree with you here. So what you're aiming to do here is you're just trying to develop your problem idea. Again, each one of these bullets can be like a sentence, 2 sentences, 3 sentences. All you're doing is elaborating the problem. You're still kind of setting the scene, okay? Now, the symptoms. Main idea 2. Symptoms. So you've outlined the problem. At this point, the reader should be like, okay, yeah, I totally understand why it's a problem. I understand why you're writing about it. So what are the consequences of this problem? What does this cause me to experience every day? Like, what are the downsides? So this is where you kind of are trying to relate. You're trying to relate to your reader. You're trying to describe stuff that they've experienced. So they read this and they're nodding their head the whole time like, oh my God, yeah, this writer gets it. This writer gets me. That's what you're trying to do here. So symptoms, you can just talk about stuff like the dangers of this problem, what it looks like, things you might not have realized are part of the problem. Things like this that can just sort of stretch out, talk about, all you're really trying to do with this section is just get the reader to be like, this problem is affecting my life. And they're totally right. They understand how it's affecting my life. And then you get to main idea 3, the solution. So with the solution, at this point, the reader understands the problem. They understand why you're the one talking about the problem. They understand what this problem looks like. They understand what might happen if the problem isn't fixed. Now you're going to talk about how to fix it. Do you have a solution in mind? If so, this is a great place to put it. If not, then you can still get creative in this section and talk about like what the world might look like without the problem. Like, I don't know how to solve sexism, but I know that a world without sexism is a better place, and I can describe that vividly. You should be doing the same thing in this section. So what does the world look like without the problem? Or who will benefit when the problem is gone? Potential pitfalls to still watch out for. You're getting into the future here. You're explaining what you're trying to get the reader to go on a journey with you, to imagine what it might be if the problem were solved, how they can solve the problem, how you propose solving the problem. And ideally, like if you do have a solution, give them a how-to, just a short how-to, how they can do this at home, what they can do, what they should be changing, what they should be keeping the same. And then the conclusion. Whoops. Short how-to. Conclusion. One of my favorite pieces of writing advice is this is how you structure an article. You tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them what you told them. It's a little uninspired, and yeah, there are better ways of telling a story, but if you're struggling to just get stuff down coherently, that's one of the best, easiest, simplest structures that I can tell you. So what I like to do in the conclusion is I like to do exactly that. Reiterate all your main points, and then take it one step further. Try to say, all right, well, now you've read this. How's your life going to change? How will the reader's life change? You're kind of going with the solution, but you're taking it one step further. You're really getting them to visualize. You're saying, okay, we've solved the problem. How does that affect your life right now? Or you're going to start taking steps to fix this issue in your life. What are you going to do? How's that going to look like? The conclusion, you really want to be pulling on the reader's heartstrings or purse strings or, logic strings, all the different strings. You're playing at a guitar over here. You want them to end the article and think, okay, this writer knows, this writer gets it. This writer gets me. I am so glad that I read that article. I'm so glad I gave that introduction a chance. I loved it. I'm going to share this with all my friends. Done. That's what you're trying to do with the conclusion. And you can literally do that by concluding, by reiterating your main points, and by just trying to get them to envision what their life is like now that they've read this amazing article that you've just written. That's it. That's my structure, okay? It's, like I said, it's not imaginative. It's a 3-point, I learned how to do this in lit class when I was 16, but this is a very, very popular structure. You can add as many main ideas if you want. You can add additional ones in here, but this structure is what gets me over the hump when I do not know how, what, why, how to turn my cool, nebulous idea into something that other people are going to enjoy reading. If you're writing a listicle or you're writing a how-to, the structure kind of suggests itself. A listicle, a how-to, you just put your bullets there and it writes itself. Anything other than those types of articles, it can be a little harder to write, okay? So I want to end with a couple final tips. At this point, you know what your article is about. You know what your main idea is. You might even have an idea for what your strongest point is. So at this point, I want you to go back and come up with 3 titles minimum. 3! And I want you to try to test them out with other people. See which ones are going to be the most interesting, the most engaging, the ones that are most likely to stand out above the noise. You can also do a subtitle. Subtitles, don't overthink them, okay? I can tell I'm guilty of this. Don't you do it too. Sometimes all you have to do is just copy one of your lines and whack it in there. Look, we're going to call this a subtitle and we're done. And that is my article template. This is how I structure an outline. This is how I decide what I'm going to write. This is how, and if you can't do this with one of your ideas, if you can't put it into this kind of cohesive structure, it might be that idea is just going to be too difficult for you to write right now. Never discount an idea. I have article ideas that have, that go back 2 years since I've been writing on Medium. It might have been that 2 years ago, I couldn't have written an article about something I thought I could. But now, going back to that idea with my new skills, with my knowledge of how to write well, with this outlining structure, I can turn that idea into something actually really, really good. And hopefully you can too. So I'll finish by saying, don't be too hard on yourself. Writing is hard. You're taking a bunch of gray matter in your brain, pushing it through your fingers, and trying to tickle someone else's soul with your words. That's a hard thing to do. And if you're even trying, that's amazing. That's such a good start. I will also say that this, like I said, this is a very entry-level outline. I have other outlines that I use when I want to get more advanced, but for people who are struggling to even get started, this is what I really recommend. And I will sign off by saying, thank you for watching this. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if there are any other things like this that you would love to see. This video was suggested to me by someone called Olivia. So Olivia, I hope you enjoyed this and I hope that this answered your question. Happy writing. Have a great rest of your week and I will see you all soon. Bye.